So in this video, I'll essentially be going over how we use sine rule and cosine rule to find x. And so in this example here, we'll be using the sine rule. Now, how do we actually use the rule itself? Well, first thing we need to do is essentially find what values we have and what values we can, essentially work with. And so here we've got uppercase C, so that's here, which is 70 degrees. And so that would correlate to sine C, and lowercase c, which would correlate to this. That's lowercase c there. We've got uppercase A, which would be sine A here. And we don't have lowercase a, which is here. We don't have lowercase b or uppercase b. And so that means we'll essentially just be using this and this to figure out what a is. So let's just rewrite this so that it's a bit more clear. Let's say a divided by sine of a is equal to c divided by sine of c. Now, since we only want a, we'll essentially multiply both sides by sine a. So that way we essentially just have lowercase a on the left-hand side. So when we do that, we get sine, actually a sine a divided by sine a is equal to c, this is lowercase c, sine a divided by sine c. And so since we multiply and divide by the same value, these two cancel out. And so you just get left with a. And so we essentially have this equation here. So a is equal to c sine a, which is divided by sine uppercase c. And so if we plug in our values, so let's see, c is 8 centimeters, so 8 sine a is 50 divided by sine c, which is 70. And so let's plug in the values into the calculator and see what answer we get. That gives you 8 sine 50 divided by sine 70. And so that is 6.52 centimeters. And so that's our answer for x. Let's try another example here. Try doing it yourself, see if you can answer it. And if you can't, then just continue with the video. All right, so with this here, we've got, let's see what values we essentially have. We've got uppercase c, we've got lowercase c, and so that means we can use this. Now, we don't have lowercase b, but we do have uppercase b, and so we'll essentially use both of these to figure out what lowercase b is. We don't really need to worry about any of the other values because we can't really use them, and plus we have everything we need. Okay, so let's just work with that. So let's write the equation here again. So b divided by sine of b is equal to c divided by sine c. Okay, and so since we just want b on its own, we multiply both sides by sine uppercase b, and so that just leaves you with b is equal to c sine b divided by sine b. And so let's just plug in our values and see what we get. So that means that b is equal to c, which is 4 sine uppercase b, which is 50, divided by sine c, which is 55. And so that is equal to, let's just plug it into a calculator, 4 sine 50 divided by sine 55. So that's 3.74. 3.74 centimeter is our value for x. So let's just move on to the next example here. And here we'll be using the cosine rule. Now, to use the cosine rule, we've essentially got everything labeled. So we know that we've got uppercase A, lowercase c. So that's lowercase, that's uppercase. We've got lowercase b. We don't have uppercase c. And we essentially need to figure out what x, so a is. And so the equation here is perfectly spelled out for us. So all we need to really do is just plug in the values. And so that would mean a squared is equal to b squared, which is 5 squared plus c squared, which is 3 squared minus 2 times b is 5 times c, which is 3, times cosine of a, which is 115. And so let's just see, once we plug in these values in our calculator, what we get. 5 squared plus 3 squared minus 3 times 5 times 3 times cosine 115. And so that equals 6.68. Okay, now that's a squared. And so to get essentially a on its own, you have to square root both sides. So when we square root both sides, we get left with a. So if you square root 46.67, that gives you 6.83 centimeters. And so that's our value for x. So that's essentially how you use cosine and sine rule to find x.